Okay, let's get started. Welcome to the session number 36 of Davos Experience in Tokyo. My name is Yoko Ishimura. I've been hosting the series over the past 3 years, and I would like to welcome all of you. How many of you, this is the first time? Okay. Yeah, we usually have quite a few first-timers. How many of you were here at the last session when we did Experience Auction? Okay, quite a few. Last time on the 18th of March, we tried Experience Auction. And some of us sort of offered some items for the auction so that the people who bid, who bought the items, can have some kind of experience. And I offered 4, and I finished 2. And I know several have already offered. Mine was that, the first one was that to watch the Aikido class that I go to, followed by Sunday Shuffle in March. So that was done. And I also had another one, which is to go to the concert via the Eastbourne Film, conducted by Kazuki Yamada, and visit him backstage because we were doing something together. And then we went out to have a drink and dinner. And tomorrow, I'm taking 5 people to the show Chorus Line, and we'll go to we'll go to have dinner later on. The last one is a little bit big. That is spending some days in British Columbia, Canada, where I spend my summer. And I haven't quite figured out the dates, but we do have some winners of that particular movie. So, and I believe that Ueno-san did something already. And anybody else has already done? I think you did it at the last time. He was listening to the story of the person, and he wrote a song for them, and he played there. So those are the kinds of things that we tried last time. But this time is a little bit different. Since it's April, I think quite a few of you may have started a new job, or have changed a job, or have been transferred to the new place. So this is a very good time to think about your career and the job options. And particularly since the Golden Week is coming up, so we have some time to think about the job or the career. So in order to do that, we sort of have a guest, Casey Wall, who is going to be talking about recruiting startups for their movie later on. But before then, let me ask you a question. How many of you, or just think about the big mistake or big failure that you have come across in your job? That's the first question. And you can choose either one of the two. And the second question is, do you think you are a candidate for the entrepreneur? So you think you have all the right stuff to become an entrepreneur, a startup? So either one of the two, you think about it for a minute or two, and then share your ideas with the neighbors, the person next to you, or you can do it in 3. So the big mistake that you have made in your career, and I can think of so many. So I'm pretty sure that you can think of something that you have made a mistake. The question is how you recover from it. But it may help to think a little bit about the mistake that you have made. And the second question that you can pick is that, do you think you have the right stuff? Remember, probably you are too young to remember that movie. There was the movie called Right Stuff. That's about the astronauts. And do you think you have the right stuff to become an entrepreneur, to do a startup? So either one of the two is fine. Are you ready? Okay, share your ideas for either one to the person next to you, or just 3 of you, either way, for about 5 minutes or so.
Do I have the right stuff? I don't know. I think entrepreneur, you need to have so many things, like very clear visions and leadership, and I just feel uplifted.
So tonight with us is Casey Wall, and he'll be talking about recruiting startups, failure, and moving. And he's been here quite a while.
16 years.
16 years, probably longer than some of you. He has written this book, which is a collection of the stories of the Japanese entrepreneurs. And it's in English as well as in Japanese. So he is kind enough to come and share with his sort of insights about the startups and recruiting industry, how it doesn't work. So if you are thinking about changing your jobs, I think it'll be a very good idea to listen to what he has to say. And he also has the sort of the project around moving, which he is trying to do through crowdsourcing. And crowdsourcing is one job option. You need to know how to get the project. And so he'll be looking for, as I understand it, some ideas for the crowdsourcing. So you can taste that as well. So with that note, let me hand over things to Casey.
Thank you, Yoko. So I'm going to try to leverage everybody's brains a little bit tonight, rather than just me and giving up here a dog lecture about career changing. So we've got some diverse themes. So recruiting, startups, you might be able to make the connection. Failure, probably. So where does the movie come in? So somehow, hopefully I can get a nice story and take you through it. But before we get there, just why am I here? So I started a company, a recruitment company in Tokyo about 5.5 years ago. Self-funded. We've got 60 people here in Tokyo. We have an office in San Francisco, we have an office in Berlin, an office in Fukuoka. And it's been really hard to build. And we focus on tech recruitment. I have another company called Red Brick Ventures. Started this about 3.5 years ago. And it started off as very active angel investments in the startup community. So when I started off being an entrepreneur in Tokyo about 5.5 years ago, there really wasn't that many. It was just before the COVID got going, so I thought, hey, I want to get back, let's do something. So started a bunch of companies quite proactively. Now we have a few of our different services, but I'll get to this in the failure talk. We got a job platform for startups that we run to try to make the market a little bit more liquid. That's just now. We have another service for recruitment, a digital service that we're going to be launching pretty soon, which is predictive analytics. So we're trying to do the deep motivational and value matching between clients and candidates based on proprietary scientific psychological testing. So we have a new service that is coming out pretty soon. And as mentioned, I wrote a book. It became #1 on Amazon for like 2 minutes. It was a little bit longer, but I was refreshing every few seconds. So Amazon on the author side actually you can refresh every 15 minutes. So for a while I had a little bit of an addiction to see where the book goes and stuff. So I finally got myself off. So today, recruiting. Who has a good image of the recruitment industry or recruiting companies? One person has a good image. Awesome. So 99% don't. I'll talk about startups. I'll talk about failure, and somehow I'm moving. So to build a company, I think you need 3 things. Any idea what these 3 things are? Money, there's one. Okay, human resources, talent, there's 2. One more missing.
Idea.
Okay, we got it. Smart group. So you have an idea, right? You have the money, and you have the talent. So from my perspective, only one of those is really important. Can you guess which one I'm going to go with? No, not yet. I think nowadays ideas are relatively cheap. The insight's very important, but ideas are out there. With the web, you can do idea arbitrage, take something that's working in China, take something that's working in the Middle East, take something in the US. Ideas are cheap nowadays. Money, it can be a difficult part. But I say it's easy because if you're willing to give away something, somehow you can get money. So if you're willing to take on risk, you can get money. If you're willing to give away equity, more of your company or more of the project you're doing, you can somehow make money. But the talent part, if you really want to do something special, you can't do it alone. Like, the world's too competitive nowadays. You need a group of people really to do it. So how do you bring somebody that's just not your friend, or this talent that you're missing together? I think talent is very, very important. Now, connecting that to the recruitment industry, it's massive. Globally, it's a $600 billion plus industry. It's huge. There's a ton of firms across the world. There's a ton of recruitment firms here. I'm sure everybody could probably name 3, 5, 10. It's very fragmented. So from the users of recruitment firms, so the candidates and the clients that use recruitment, they kind of look all the same. Some have a little bit better brand, but who's good, who's bad, mixed reputations. It's very difficult to differentiate. And only one person raised their hand. Do they have a good impression of recruitment firms? Because there's lots of unhappy clients and candidates out there. People have been burned. The business model of the industry is transactional. You take somebody from company A, you put somebody in company B. It's not tied to the value that they actually create. So both sides don't really like this. The candidate doesn't feel like, hey, I'm loved, my interests aren't being really matched here. The clients get pissed off if it doesn't work very well. So there's a lot of dodgy practices that happen, the outcomes aren't great. And if you don't have good outcomes, if you don't have a good match between the employer and the person joining the company, there's a lot of pain. There's opportunity costs, so you lose time. There's emotional pain if you have to quit the company. Or if you're on the other side, if you're a manager and you have to fire somebody, or have to go through the steps to fire somebody, especially in Japan where it's very difficult, it's really, really tough. And then of course you have the money side. So all of this adds up to is a $600 billion global industry is completely broken. Very, very broken. So what do recruiters do? I don't think you can see this slide right here, but what it says is liquidity. Does anybody have an idea what liquidity, I mean by liquidity? Yep, so if we have a client, so I have a client A comes to me, says I want to hire a CFO. If I focus on accounting recruitment, I should know 100 CFOs. So I make them more liquid, I can start introducing good people to him, and then vice versa. If a good CFO comes to me, I should have a bunch of clients that I can introduce him. So we make the market more liquid so both sides can go back and forth. The second part we do is matching. So if we're doing our job very well, we should culturally match the candidate's motivations, their values, their career aspirations with the client. And the third part is what I call the stick. And this is the really difficult part. So there's not many recruiters that do this very well. But this is where somebody joins a company, stays for 3 years, 5 years, and creates millions of dollars of value. If I introduce a CFO to a pre-IPO company, and that person takes an IPO, that's huge value that we're creating. If I introduce a sales director to a new startup with a great product that doesn't know how to sell, maybe they're engineers, maybe they're designers, and that sales director actually starts and goes to sell the product, making money, creating employment, that's huge value. And if that person stays, that stick is very, very important. So this is what agency recruiters do if we're doing our job very well. We should be doing all 3 of these circles. So it's a very, very difficult job because people are complicated. Now, if
let me just ask, is the speed of his talking okay, or is it too fast? Are you
too slow.
Too slow? Get out. Is everybody okay? Okay, good.
If you want me to slow down, just raise your hand. I can slow down a little bit. So, digitally, what's happened is people have figured out that the industry is broken. Smart people have figured out. It's pretty obvious. There's a lot of money in recruitment. So a lot of digital companies are trying to fix it. So on the liquidity side, there's companies like LinkedIn, not so successful in Japan, but very successful in Western countries. All of a sudden, everybody's resumes on the internet. So by the employer side, you can start to see potential people that you could hire, potential people that you could scout. It makes it more liquid. Japan, you have BizReach, who came and spoke a month ago, I believe. Then you have Adjusta for startups. So that liquidity portion is starting to be addressed digitally. But globally, nobody does this matching very well, digitally. And absolutely nobody does the stake very well. How, through a digital solution, can you ensure somebody's going to be a great match to the company and stay for many years and create lots and lots of value? So there's massive opportunities for startups. So if there's anybody looking for an idea, here's some ideas right now. I'll give it away for free. So startups, nice segue. So we do a lot of recruitment for startups. I have a lot of early stage Japanese companies grow before their Series A. I help them go global. Our firm helps a lot of global companies come into the market. So we get to see both sides of what's happening to startups in the ecosystem between San Francisco and Japan. So there's a bit of a startup boom going on in Japan right now, but it's still miles away from where San Francisco is. So if we look at the differences of them, and we're going to start appearing, so please try to guess what you think the differences between the ecosystems in Japan and San Francisco are. So one of the big ones is, in San Francisco, the cycle is very, very fast. Within 2 years, companies either fail, they go bankrupt, they close, or they boom. In Japan, it's quite slow. It can take 5 years, it can take 7 years. And if you want to exit, and this is more of a startup word, and exit means either get your company bought out or go IPO, it takes a long time in Japan. So in San Francisco, they don't have much engineering talent. So hiring and getting great engineers and getting them fast is very, very aggressive. And engineers in San Francisco cost $150,000. So I'm using the word San Francisco, Silicon Valley interchangeably, but they're basically the same thing. In Japan, a lot of the money, when value is created by a startup, if it goes public or it gets bought out, is held by the founders, or usually only one founder. So the money doesn't get to flow around the system. Whereas in San Francisco, many employees, let's say the first 20 or 50, should get sizable stock options. So if that company goes public, lots of millionaires get created, lots of people. Then they turn around and go angel invest in the next company. So money flows a lot quicker. In Japan, money flows slower. So this is why the startup market isn't quite there. Something that I found very interesting is in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, when you create a new product, there's lots of people to use it. There's a lot of early adopters, and it's really hard to get your first 500, 200, 1,000 users. Somebody give you feedback and keep doing it. But in Japan, it's quite difficult, because the early adopters are older people that tend to go to a big camera, and it's more hardware-focused type of thing, but they're not influencers. In Silicon Valley, the influencers, meaning somebody who can spread your product to their friends and get that product out there quicker, are the same. Early adopters, influencers, same. But in Japan, they're different. Influencers are more young women in Japan. So it's the F1s. So it's, to use a marketing term, it's 18 to about 25, maybe a little bit younger. Those are the ones that are the biggest influencers. But they're not the early adopters. So to try to get that segmentation is very, very difficult. Still, failure is unacceptable. Japan ranked 83rd in the world for the ease of opening a business. I think Gabon is right ahead of it, so it's not that competitive. So what's missing? There's a lack of M&As and IPOs in Japan. So you need more success stories. You need more of these great founders to be released, to go start the next big company, to create jobs. Because a lot of job creation is small and medium-sized companies, and they have to start as startups first. There's not much competition in Japan. This is a great thing if you're a startup founder. If you know your market in Japan, you can make a business. If you're pretty good, you show up to work, you don't have a drinking problem, you can do all that. I think to make a $20 million business in Japan, if you're willing to put in the time to make the sacrifices, can be done pretty straightforward. To get over that is very, very hard. Because the industries in Japan, most every industry, you have one dominant player. If we talk about advertising, you've got Dentsu. Then you've got number 2, which is Hakuhoga, just to keep Dentsu honest a little bit, but they'll never ever beat Dentsu. And number 3 is quite smaller. Then it gets way, way, way smaller. So they don't really care about small startups there at all. So it's pretty easy to pick up clients, there's inefficiencies because the market's slow. The biggest problem is there's very few experienced entrepreneurial leaders in Japan, especially in tech. There's probably 30, 40 people that can really scale a company past $100 million in revenue in Japan. So you need that to double, to triple, to really create the startup market here. Startups fail. Only 10% of startups get out of seed and go to Series A, which is a big round of funding and means your company's starting to do well. So there's really not enough. To get past that number, you need a bigger pool at the beginning to do it. So you just need a ton more startups. And something, and this is more cultural, there's just a lack of discussing the failure. Because you have that failure, you have all the problems, and if every new entrepreneur has to learn everything themselves, it's really difficult. So failure needs to be talked about a lot more. So I'll go first, and I'll talk a little bit about failure. So I failed quite a bit, so I'm still standing here, but let's see. I had 2 co-founders when I started my company. They're gone. It was emotional and very difficult breaking up with co-founders. I started the company with a friend. That didn't work out very well. So when the co-founders left, it was a very precarious stage of my company. There were about 20 to 30 people. A lot of people liked the co-founders. Many people were very against me type of situation, so we had the company quite divided. Lots of people saying, Casey, put a bad word in right there, that the culture's broken, this company's messed up type of situation, but somehow overcame that type of thing. We've had very difficult cash flow problems at different points early in our life because we didn't have any venture capital funding type of thing. So getting very giddy, and kind of coming back up to there. So failure is very close to that point. I talked about Red Brick Ventures where we did angel investment. What we actually did there is we did idea arbitrage, and we took an idea from San Francisco, brought it to Japan, recruited in a CEO, invested about $50,000 to $100,000 US, and then gave them the equity of the company. We created 4 companies, all of those failed. That was painful. That was difficult too. So I wrote a book. It became kind of famous, but that almost failed as well. So I interviewed these 20, many of them fairly famous Japan startup CEOs, and it wasn't kind of a gotcha interview. So they had said a lot of stuff. They were naming names, this thing stinks, this piece is horrible, don't ever do this. There was a lot of information there. So when you take the big interview, you get it down to the edited version, and right before we were going to publication, I gave it to everybody, just to double check, just to make the facts were straight. Mail started coming in, calls started coming in within 10 minutes. What the are you doing? This is horrible, there's no way I'm going to let this go out in the book. I didn't say this is not right. Everybody was saying they weren't going to be part of the book. So for about 2 weeks, I'm on the phone begging people to stay in the project, right, to keep it going. So the book says it's the founding stories of 20 startup founders. Actually, there's only 19 in there because one guy refused to do it. I'll give you a discount. 3 people can have his. But that one almost failed. And kind of my latest failure is I've been getting more pressure to write another book. But writing a book is difficult. I don't think it's going to have as much impact as this one. So supposedly 10, 20 people I've heard, they started companies because they got the courage with the information that they read heard. So I'm trying to make a movie on startups. Not a documentary, but an actual movie, theaters, drama, Japanese director, Japanese actors and everything, trying to get the funding. And I'm failing repeatedly in doing this. So it started off with Mirai Tsurumiwa, this is kind of started a movie, had the whole story concept, there's kind of some of the ideas, the relationships that are going, that got crushed. Here was the latest concept, so we actually sat down a week ago with a famous director, who read this, brought his whole team there, and then I got a lecture for an hour and a half about how stupid the idea was, and wasn't very good, and everything. So I'm repeatedly failing in this. But somehow I want to try to get this out. So I've been going at this for about 4 months. The average time to make a movie in Japan is 3 years. So I think I have time. If I get to the 3-year mark and I haven't been able to put this out, we'll see. So, to use your brains, the director told me we need, in the movie plot, some sort of technology that gives people a vision of what future society is going to be. So kind of the ideas that I had for the technology and the startups were too boring. They want like a Blade Runner type of thing. Imagine what society is going to look at. So somewhere where capitalism doesn't exist anymore type of thing. Where maybe politics, the way it's structured in democracy and kind of, votes and stuff being rigged, doesn't exist in this way. So how can a technology change this and change society? And that's basically my homework that I'm hoping you can help me out tonight with some ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now it's time for you to join the discussion and probably help Casey to figure out his new ideas. We have 8 tables, so we would like you to be broken down into any one of those tables, and we sort of put the topic. So those are the startups, and those are the recruiting. What are the kind of things that we could do so that people can have much better experience in recruiting, or being recruited and so forth. The startups, the same idea, but probably what we could do is that what are the kind of things we can do to break down or to establish the ecosystem for the startups in Japan. You can start off from the problems, or you can start off from the solutions, either way. And these 2 are movie ideas, as we talked about. I know some of you are much more into technology. So what are the kind of things that we could do to make Casey's movie idea a reality? And these are the faders. What are the kind of faders that we can recover from? Or you can share your own experiences and try to figure out what you can learn from that particular experience. And how can we encourage people to share their stories of failures? Because we usually do not talk about the failures, right? So if you go to the company and try to find out what are the unsuccessful in the product, you just see, no answer. You get no answers whatsoever because they don't want to talk about it. They just want to forget it. So, but we can learn so many things from what we fail to do, the mistakes and failures. So how can we just share, or how can we encourage people to share their failures? What are the mechanisms, or what are the kind of things that you can try? For example, we can think about the Davos experience in Tokyo session, where we can share the failure stories. Whoever gets the best failure story will get the prize or something. I mean, that's, one way of thinking about it. So any ideas would be good. So since, how many of us do we have here? 59, okay. And 8 groups, so each group would be having about 7 or so. And so what I would like you to do is to take your chair, go to any one of these tables, and start a discussion for about 45 minutes or so, 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And what I would like you to do is just quickly introduce yourself. Don't exchange cards. That will take forever. So just introduce yourself, and you get into the discussion. Somebody can lead the discussion, and we want each one of the tables to have discussion leader of some kind. And we want each group to report back at about 9 o'clock or even before to tell all of us, what you discussed, what were the lessons learned. So there will be a reporter and there will be a discussion leader, at least 2 coming from each group. Okay? If you want to take, 2 discussion leaders and 2 reporters, that's fine too. So I would like many of you to join the discussion first of all, participate, and also take the lead and practice what you would do. Ready? Okay.